Good morning. Welcome to Kila Chari Torah's daily discussion of Rambam's 613 Mitzvot for Thursday, July 22nd. Positive Mitzvah 118 is to make restitution for Me'ilah. Me'ilah is often translated into English as sacrilege. Sacrilege, I think, in English has a very broad definition. Me'ilah has a very particular and precise definition in Jewish law, as everything does. Me'ilah is taking dedicated sacred objects and having personal benefit or making personal use of them. So once something's been dedicated for use in the temple, and someone accidentally makes use of it for some personal gain, personal benefit, so that is called Me'ilah, and that person is then liable to make restitution for that. And there is, in fact, an entire tractate called Me'ilah, not a long one particularly, but one that deals with these laws in particular. Also in tractate Trumas, there's a Mishnah, a tractate in the Mishnah called Trumas that deals that touches tangentially on these also. Okay, now we are shifting gears a little bit in our list of the mitzvahs, and we're going to talk about the agricultural mitzvot that inhere in the land of Israel. A lot of discussion amongst the sages if these apply. Let's say you're not in Israel. Let's say you're in Babylon. Let's say you're in Egypt. Let's say you're in Italy or Poland or Germany or southern Ontario or somewhere, and you're planting your farm, you're tending your vineyard, you are, what else could you be doing? Tending your vineyard, right? In California or wherever it happens to be. And you want to know if the laws that the Torah directs us to observe with regard to leavings for the poor and so on, if those apply. So the general consensus of opinion is that those do not apply. The difference of opinion you'll see in the Gemara, but the halacha that we follow is that the following mitzvot do not apply outside of Israel. So these apply very much in Israel, which is why when we're in Israel or when we are purchasing fruits or consuming vegetables, any kind of produce from the land of Israel itself, it has an extra degree of sanctity, of holiness, of which we must be extra careful. Okay, the first one the Rambam mentions here is Neta Revai. So for the first 3 years of plantings, the plants have a special status, but for the fourth year, there is a mitzvah of observing to observe called Neta Revai, the plantings of the fourth year. They are holy themselves, and they should be brought to Jerusalem by the owners and consumed there, which is similar to another mitzvah of the second tithe. This is not something that has to be shared with the Kohanim, but the fruits of that fourth year plantings are brought to Jerusalem, eaten there. Then we have the very familiar mitzvah of Peyot, mitzvah of Payas, not necessarily the curly ones on the side of one's head, but rather corners of the field. Positive mitzvah 120 is to leave the corners of one's field of grain, of trees, of produce, and so on, for the poor, for the stranger, so that they can gather for themselves without shame. And we take care of the needy among us in that fashion. Also, gleanings. Leket is the name of this mitzvah. Peya, we just spoke about, and then mitzvah 121 is leket, when we're gleaning, when we're harvesting the produce of the field, not the sheaves, but the stalks that are left over, that fall by the wayside or whatever it happens to be. Those also should be left there in the field for the poor and the stranger to come and gather for themselves, so they have provisions. Perhaps the most difficult mitzvah of all to observe, shikha, the forgotten sheaf, also has to be left for the needy in our fields. When we harvest our fields and we do the cutting, the reaping, and so on, and then we bind the sheaves together, tie them up and make them easier to carry, and then we gather those up, put them on the wagon, put them on the horse, whatever it happens to be. If you forget a sheaf, you can't go back and get it. That has to be now, it has a special mitzvah of shikha, the forgotten sheaf has to be left there so that the needy can come and take it. How do you set about to do the mitzvah of shikha? You can't. If you think ahead of doing, I'm going to leave one, so that's not shikha, that's not forgetting. It has to be an accidental leaving there. So there's a little fun mental puzzle for us to think about. Similar along these lines, just transferred into the context of the vineyard, is olalot, the mitzvah of olalos, which is incompletely formed grape clusters. Those also should be left for the poor. They're not the choicest of the choice, won't fetch you the best price at the market, but as I like to tell everybody, it all looks the same when it gets to your tummy. So those not so attractively formed grape clusters, ololois, are left on the vineyard for the poor to gather, as are single grapes which fall, parrot, I believe it's called, the grapes which fall individually on the ground in the course of harvesting the vineyard. Those also are to be left for the poor. Okay, we have a few more agricultural mitzvahs to talk about, so please join us for that tomorrow. We will take it from there. Meantime, have